Intérêt public du Sénat, troisième lecture, number 1, S-203.
Sen McCallum.
All my relations. An adult female beluga whale lying motionless below the body of her dead baby calf. An orca lying motionless on her side, floating towards the top of the tank, heavily sedated from an accidental overdose of Valium. A sharp, rust-colored steel-edged grate covered in blood, the result of carelessly transporting a beluga whale between tanks. Finally, an indoor tank lacking both natural light and quality air ventilation, and now a sickly green color caused by a breakdown in the disinfection unit. This tank contained dolphins and pinnipeds who now suffer permanent eye health issues as they were forced to endure the substandard condition of this tank after the malfunction. These disturbing visuals that I have painted for you are actual photographs that were submitted to the Standing Senate Committee on Fisheries and Oceans on April 11, 2017 by a former marine mammal trainer. They are all captured at Marineland Adventure Park. Honorable Senators, after that brief introduction, which represents only a microcosm of the issues at hand, it will come as no surprise that I rise to speak today with great urgency on Bill S-203, also known as the Ending the Captivity of Whales and Dolphins Act. I would like to thank Senator Wilfred Moore for introducing this important and long overdue piece of legislation. I would also like to thank Senator Sinclair, who has since taken over the reins and has been an ardent champion for the guidance and passage of Bill S-203 in this place. Colleagues, I would like to give a gentle reminder that this is 2018. The fact that we are only having this discussion now is frankly disappointing. The fact that this bill has had such an unfortunately long tenure in this place is even more disappointing. In this day and age of heightened awareness, enlightenment, and compassion, I admit my confusion and frustration that a bill aimed at protecting some of nature's largest, most substantial, and most intelligent animals from living in insufficient confines can be mired in the Senate since its introduction in 2015. Honorable Senators, as I had mentioned at the outset of my speech, the grisly and upsetting images I described were submitted by a former marine mammal trainer who had worked at Marineland. As you know, Marineland is one of a very small number of similar aquariums who would be affected by this legislation, along with the Vancouver Aquarium. For their part, Marineland submitted their own briefing to our Fisheries and Oceans Committee, which stated in part that they have a long-standing commitment to marine and land animal care by consistent investment in the evolution of its facilities, its staff, education, and the continued reevaluation commitment and implementation of the highest standards of animal care. I have no doubt that this adventure park, as with similar parks or aquariums across Canada, does not set out in their operation with the intention of causing undue harm, pain, stress, or injury to any of the animals in their care. However, despite best efforts, these types of issues are simply unavoidable, whether by human error or mechanical error. The very fact that there exists a reality of undue harm while in captivity should be enough to jolt people, namely this chamber, into action. In his testimony before committee, the former marine mammal trainer, indicated in his own words that, quote, "I, after much desperation, elected to abandon my profession of 12 years, as I could no longer tolerate the unnecessary and prolonged suffering of animals," unquote. This issue of animal cruelty is unacceptable in the 21st century in and of itself. This concern is compounded by my personal belief, shared by many, that having these majestic and intelligent animals in captivity is simply unnatural. It is against the very nature, biology, and physiology of these animals to be swimming around in tanks when they are wired and built for the vastness of an ocean. A representative from the Canadian Federation of Humane Societies spoke to both of these points while testifying before our Fisheries Committee, drawing a clear link between unnatural captivity and the reality of the harms that befall these animals. In their testimony, they said, "The confinement of cetaceans causes physical and mental pain and suffering, and therefore fails to meet their health, behavioral, and environmental needs. There are a number of pressing problems for cetaceans in captivity. In captivity, natural behaviors such as foraging, breaching, and fluke waving are all limited and sometimes impossible. Cetaceans are frequently isolated and spend much of their time understimulated, causing them psychological and physical suffering. Cetaceans are a highly intelligent, social, deep-diving species whose needs simply cannot be met in a tank, nor can our needs to study and learn more about cetaceans. Studying the behaviors of a whale in captivity as an effort to better understand their natural behaviors in any way is not directly relatable. In captivity, they do not and cannot express natural behaviors that would lead to a better understanding for conservation of their species. Colleague, there is an excellent quote from Jacques Cousteau that rings especially true here. There is about as much educational benefit to be gained in studying dolphins in captivity as there would be studying mankind by only observing prisoners held in solitary confinement. Honorable Senators, the argument put forward about the necessity and benefit of research that is able to be done on these animals while in captivity is, I believe, an argument of convenience. Nothing about cetaceans in captivity is natural, including their behavior. If scientists are truly interested in observing and understanding the actions and behaviors of these animals, they would be best suited to do this in the wild, where they are able to exist freely and without constraint. Colleagues, it is my belief that aquariums have these animals in captivity first and foremost to turn a profit. It is important that we do not confuse entertainment for education. The actions and reactions that are elicited from these animals while in captivity is a far cry from what their usual behavioral patterns and habits are in the wild. The scientific benefit of keeping these animals captive seems moot, and with it the educational argument for the benefits of students and children. Rather, this seems to be entertainment in the simplest terms, to the benefit of the public and the detriment of the animal. With any big company that is selling an experience, entertainment drives revenue. It is incredibly unfortunate that the entertainment must come largely at the expense of the welfare of these animals. As the representative from Ontario Captive Animal Watch told our Fisheries and Oceans Committee, science has demonstrated that cetaceans are extremely intelligent, highly emotional, and socially complex species. They are well aware of their situation surrounding and the stresses that come with captivity. These are heavy burdens for them to bear both physically and mentally. Honorable Senators, while the passage of this bill has been regrettably slow, now is the time to act. Let us do what is right by both respecting and upholding the democratic process. Every piece of legislation that passes before this chamber is due the right to come to a vote. In my heart, I do not believe that there is a single member of this chamber who disagrees with this sentiment. However, I strongly believe that it is inappropriate and it is unfortunate that a small collective would act in bad faith because of their personal stance on a piece of legislation. Acting in such a way to indefinitely delay the legislative process goes against the spirit of our democratic institution, one which is predicated on the will of the majority. With that, colleagues, let us put personal opinion aside and do what is right. Let us respect the democratic process. Let us respect the will of our sponsor, and let us vote on this bill. For in the words of this bill's initial sponsor, Senator Willie Moore, whales and dolphins don't belong in swimming pools. They belong in the sea. Thank you.